And now it's time for another episode of Tales to Lull You to Sleep, with your host, The Second Opinion.
Good evening. Tonight, we return to the world of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, with a story simply titled Somepony to Watch Over Me.
One morning, at Sweet Apple Acres, Applejack, Granny Smith, and Big Macintosh all had to leave for important errands at the same time. They debated whether Apple Bloom, the youngest child of the family, was old enough to stay home all by herself. So while Apple Bloom and her friends waited on bated breath, the three of them talked it over. "We have decided," they said, emerging from their conversation, "that you are old enough to stay home all by yourself." Apple Bloom was overjoyed at the news, but her big sister Applejack began to have second thoughts as she packed the apple pie cart for her delivery with Big Macintosh. After they left, Apple Bloom set about doing all the chores on the list they left her, and then began celebrating at having the house all to herself. But over on the delivery trail, Applejack simply could not relax. "I'm just so worried about Apple Bloom, Big Macintosh," she said to her brother. "There are so many things I forgot to remind her of. Such as, what if she forgets that when she needs to get a spoon out of the drawer, she needs to open the drawer first?"
That's not funny.
Applejack raced home to check on Apple Bloom, startling her as she burst through the door and causing her to fall off the table she happened to be standing on, making a giant mess. Applejack was horrified by what she saw and vowed never to leave Apple Bloom again. Apple Bloom, equally horrified, attempted to get more soup out of the refrigerator to show Applejack that she could do it with no problem, but someone upstairs, deciding that they simply didn't like Apple Bloom, caused more mess to fall on her at random. Wasting no time, Apple Bloom fled to the backyard and began to rake leaves to prove to her older sister that she was capable, only to discover that Applejack had tied a pillow to the rake, because she did not want her little sister to get an owie, as opposed to telling her simply not to use the rake. Then Applejack gave her a safety helmet. So Apple Bloom ran over to the apple trees and began to buck apples to prove that she was capable. But Applejack had tied nets to all of the trees to catch the apples before they fell, so that bucking them accomplished absolutely nothing. Then Applejack gave Apple Bloom a safety helmet. Determined to keep trying, Apple Bloom gathered up the apples in a wheelbarrow and wheeled them to the house. But Applejack was one step ahead of her, attaching training wheels to the wheelbarrow. Which granted ruins Apple Bloom's case, but actually I might consider patenting that. And then Applejack gave her a safety helmet. Apple Bloom pleaded with her sister to come to her senses, but Applejack was entirely condescending and had no faith left in her sister, promising to be there forever and for always. Then Applejack gave her a safety helmet to wear over her safety helmet. What am I reading? Desperate for a way out, Apple Bloom called upon her friends for help, and together they formed a plan. While Sweetie Belle would impersonate Apple Bloom and pretend to be asleep as a decoy for Applejack, Apple Bloom would take the apple pie cart that Applejack still had yet to deliver and make the delivery herself, proving that she was self-sufficient. Overjoyed with the likelihood of their plan succeeding, they began to sing about it, until they heard Applejack coming. "No time for a song," said Scootaloo. "If we are to make our plan succeed, you must leave now." "Oh good, YouTube always gets so mad when I have to insert someone else's song into these videos." Applejack checked on the sleeping Sweetie Belle approximately 1,440 times, but ultimately what gave her away was not the notion that her sister had changed colors and grown a horn, but the fact that Scootaloo decided to yell randomly from the closet while Applejack was in the room. "Scootaloo?" gasped Applejack. No," said Scootaloo. When Applejack heard the full story, she was horrified, because it meant that she might never see her sister again. Meanwhile, Apple Bloom had reached a fiery swamp with her delivery, when a dark shadow emerged, and a chimera stepped into the light. The chimera was hungry, and said it would eat the apple pie she was carrying. And her. just so both parties are conveniently at risk here. Applebloom dodged the Chimera and fled with her delivery, but though she managed to push it further down a hill, she soon found herself cornered, with her back to a 40 stick running out of the ground. Suddenly, Applejack appeared and leapt into action with flame-proof boots. First, she used a snake charmer's flute to put the snake head of the Chimera to sleep. Then, she used a lion tamer's chair and shoved it into the beast's mouth. But, since this Chimera head is a tiger as opposed to a lion, it simply bit through the chair. So Applejack opted to simply leap out of the way as it lunged, getting it stuck in a tree. She then threw the goat head a block of its favorite ricotta cheese, because surely it deserves a reward after this. Applejack scooped up her sister and ran, and when they were both safely out of danger, she lectured Applebloom for so foolishly putting her life at risk, and for losing the cart of apple pies. But, upon discovering that she hadn't actually lost the cart of apple pies, and had in fact gotten them slightly farther than Applejack would have expected, she was immediately impressed and forgave everything, vowing to never hover over her sister again. So together, they finished making the delivery to the grateful bunch of Cajun, swamp-dwelling stoners. Actually, I think I have a much better understanding of this episode now.
So remember, children, if someone has no faith in your abilities, simply prove how much you can do by doing the most reckless, stupidest, dangerous thing available, and failing at it. That should show them how capable you are, or perhaps also show you that you should appreciate what they do, even though it is as annoying and invasive as could possibly be, but, well, I'm sure you're not confused in the slightest. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go renegotiate my contract again. Oh, backstage there! Just who did you say sets the quality standard for the stories I read on this show?